This episode contains discussion of emotional and psychological abuse as well as reference to sexual acts, which may be triggering or difficult for listeners. The content shared reflects the lived experiences of our guests and is intended for educational and awareness purposes only. Listener discretion is advised. If you are currently experiencing abuse or need support, please reach out to a trusted professional, therapist, counselor, or call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 for confidential assistance.
Good morning and welcome to Rise and Thrive with Dr. J. Nicole, where we are rising in faith and thriving in purpose. Today is a very exclusive episode. We're going to be hearing about the experiences of my wonderful guest here, Ms. Sharon Gladney. She is a trauma-informed care practitioner and abuse recovery coach with 18 years of experience in behavioral mental health field. She has held positions as a clinical director and mental health clinical manager. She is also a certified Reiki master and spiritual life coach. Sharon Gladney obtained a master's in education with a specialization in human services from the University of Wisconsin-Platteville and a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Wisconsin-Northside. Also my alma mater. Outside of work, she enjoyed spending time with her 4 amazing children, reading and cooking. Let's give Sharon a warm welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm so happy to be here. So excited.
Yes, indeed. Well, Sharon, I really want to thank you for having the courage to speak out about your story. And then I'm also honored that you filled this space to share it here with me today on Rise and Thrive with Dr. J. Nicole. So we'll just get right into it. In this episode, I'm going to be sitting down with Sharon. And she's a speaker, a survivor, and a soul-led woman. She's walking boldly in her feelings. After 18 years in a psychological abusive relationship, Sharon found the courage to face herself and rebuild a life rooted in peace, purpose, and personal truth. Through this candid, very authentic, and vulnerable conversation, Sharon is going to share what it means to choose self, to heal the parts that stay too long, and redefine love, not just with a partner, but with God, with motherhood, and with self. This episode is for anyone who is standing on the edge of change, who's scared to jump, or maybe even desperate to be free. So, Sharon, thank you in advance for doing the hard work.
It has been hard work, but it is well worth it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Sharon, let's just jump right in. What were some of the signs that maybe you overlooked early on that later revealed themselves to actually be emotional or psychological abuse?
Well, the signs were very clear, on looking back. And the signs that I saw in the beginning
Mhm.
ended up being the same reason of ending, 18 years later. What I ended up having to leave for is what I saw from the very beginning. So sometimes in relationship will, to see things trickling down over years.
Mhm.
Our first year ended up being a very traumatic or shock situation for me. So right after our first year, I ended up finding out that he was addicted to our operating in like chat lines. So
Now, some people might not know what chat lines are. What year we talking here, Sharon?
I didn't, when I was I got married at 20. So that was after the first year, 21, 22.
Mhm.
And so I ended up getting a call from a company where he like owed money for the chat lines. And I'm like, what's that? So I ended up finding out that, and he ended up confessing.
So, Sharon, are
That was
these the commercials that used to come on back in the day before we had AOL Messenger?
you
I'm
remember
trying to go
those
back.
commercials? I didn't pay any attention to that world or anything
Yeah.
like that. So it was mind blowing to me of like actually chatting with people and then like meeting up with them and having sex. Like that blew
Mm.
my mind. I didn't really
Yeah.
know anything about that. And so he ended up confessing, that within our first year, he had had sex with at least 10 women from chat lines.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so that was a
And that was
shocker.
in that year or in totality?
It goes a lot further. That's
Okay.
just within the first year. I was, we go through the I'm done, how could you? What is this? All this kind of stuff. And at the time, I listened to, and this is no down or negative to anyone that feels a certain way of saying, God gonna change him,
Mhm.
God gonna fix it.
Mhm.
He's gonna be a strong man of God. I don't want to veer
Yeah.
anyone from that, but that was a huge influence for me at that time
Mhm.
from older women. So you want to hear that, God's gonna come do a great work and all of this stuff. And I remember I went through a phase where I was like, man, I wish I didn't listen to those women.
Yeah. Yeah. And they were
uh,
likely giving you advice that they had been given.
yeah, yeah. And so it started from the sexual, and it really it continues for 18 years in different
Okay.
ways. But yeah, it wasn't like, 15 years in and it's like, oh my God, they had an affair. And this is a huge part of my story is we're going to get to it, but self-betrayal.
Yeah.
Because I got a huge sign within the first year.
Okay. So the chat line, that was more glaring. What were maybe some of the subtle or just not even necessarily subtle, but like other behaviors, speech, mindset, any of those things that like,
Um, well, something I picked up on a lot, when we would get into an argument, or disagreement. I'm just here for the kids anyway.
okay.
And then would apologize later. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to say that. But it will continue to come up in different
Mhm.
arguments where some people may, a person can be telling their truth when they're
Yeah.
upset, but it's like, well, I don't want to lose you. So, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to do that. And this is before it gets really deep,
Mhm.
where it got pretty extreme. But just different comments will come up. I was typically one, I love to cook, clean. I'm a woman that I keep a really nice house and I do all those things. And he used to say, plenty of women do that. Plenty of women do that
Oh,
and
was
have businesses.
minimizing and diminishing.
Oh, yeah, plenty of women do what you do. Things like that would be said quite a bit.
Okay, so that subtle chipping away. And I think that's how it sneaks by because it's not like a dagger. It's just like a little sampling of the sandpaper.
Oh, it became a dagger
All right.
when you let the little things go.
And also it wears down your protective layer.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
I'm sorry, go ahead, huh?
I was gonna say, yeah, when you skim past those things that seem little,
Mm-hmm.
it can get a lot bigger.
So
Pretty much, this went on in many different ways for years. I reconciled after that. The children came, had a kiddo every 3 years.
so hold on, Sharon. Let's start at the beginning of the love story, right? Because there
Mhm.
was love, right? To get down the path or some type of connection. So
Connect.
walk
Mhm.
us back to how it started.
High school,
Okay.
junior year,
I remember y'all. So
English class.
Sharon and I actually grew up in the same hometown, or it's a city, not a town. We grew up in the same city. We went to the same high school. I don't think I met you until high school. And then
Yeah,
we overlapped as well in undergrad at University of South Parkside. So I remember y'all look real cute.
yeah, yeah. Um, and I stopped for a minute when you said there had to be love
Yeah, I
somewhere.
noticed.
We'll get to that process of what I learned in therapy where I had to face like what really is love. Because we'll call something love because of a feeling that we have, but then we have to talk about what love is.
The experience.
So I would say we connected in high school and had this connection as friends. So it's kind of like I ended up, and it wasn't something I wanted. And, in the beginning, it's like, oh, this just my homeboy, type of thing.
Mhm.
And it grew from there. And so there was this connection of friendship, but I did not know the inner struggles that he had, just like he wouldn't know the inner struggles that I have.
Mhm.
And I would say that's one of the things where I'm not a big supporter, not necessarily against it or judging anybody else do it, but not a huge supporter of getting married at 20 and are fresh from high school because you really don't know all the different parts of you yet going
Mhm.
into adulthood.
And
And
your
then
brain's
different
not done
situations.
developing.
No, no. So then there was no way for me to know some of these inner struggles because he probably didn't even know those inner struggles.
Mhm. And how is he
Same
gonna work
thing for
through it?
me.
Mhm.
So yeah, it started with friendship in high school. And then it's like, I went to Columbia College in Chicago,
Mhm.
fresh from high school. So
Yeah.
I moved downtown Chicago and he came when he was 19 and asked to marry me. And I'm like, like any other young girl, it's like, oh my God, I'm like so excited.
Mhm.
And I remember a moment of something, this has always stood out to me. I was in Columbia College and I was in the elevator and I was telling a friend of mine that, I was now engaged and I was talking about, I've been going back and forth about going to school for psychology. I'm going to go back home so I can get married and this, and that.
He thought
And
it
I
was his
switched my
dream.
whole trajectory because I was going to Columbia College for broadcast journalism.
Mm.
And I completely switch something, a direction that I was going in. I made a decision.
Mm.
Um, and I remember a woman, she stepped off that elevator and she held the door and she said, you better focus on you. And if
Ooh.
it's meant to be, that person will be there. But you do not up and change your life for a man. And then she walked away. I have never forgotten
Chills.
her.
I just got chills. And
I,
when I hear that, when people tell stories, my brain creates a picture like a movie. So I just see this dramatic pause, and you're just like, and you just look like this. You look like a Hallmark movie, like the best thing that just ever happened to you, and excited about because that's what it was about being chosen.
yeah,
Boxes checked, I've arrived. And this lady said, no, that's not it.
that's not the priority.
Mhm.
And I've never forgot that moment. And it still gives me chills because I know that was significant.
Yeah.
It was like it wasn't, it was just like a warning that felt deep. You ever got like somebody say something, but it hits your spirit a little different?
Mhm. Sharon, listen, God be communicating with us all the time. He uses people all the time. He will use the very person that might be hurting us to get us a message. And we have to pay
Yes.
attention to like that pause you had. You were
That pause.
20. So your discernment wasn't high.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's key.
Yeah.
That's key right there. But even though it's like it wasn't high, you used the perfect word. It was this pause,
Mm.
like as if time stopped.
Yes.
Like, Sharon, listen right now. And if I didn't, so I
Because I
didn't
mean,
do it.
why would you give it up if the goal at that point is to get the ring, get married, get to have kids? Like there's this fantasy that people create that you do these things and now you have the perfect life.
Yeah, because I looked at it before as a fantasy, but
Mm.
now I know better. It's programming.
So, ooh, yes,
It's
ma'am.
program.
You speaking my language. So let me ask you this: while you were at Columbia College on your track to broadcast journalism, what was he doing?
Back home, just working.
Okay.
I believe he just had a job at the time and working. And I was super focused. Like, I've always been one to be like focused on education, focused on what my goals were. That person changed over the years. I went through a season. I lost a lot of that part of
Mhm.
me
Of a piece
and
of
had to
you
find it back
along the way. Yeah.
along the way
So this
a
is
little
like
bit
a
more.
story of reclamation of self.
Yeah, and it's a journey.
Mm-hmm.
It's a journey back. One thing I learned is the longer you stay on the train, the longer it takes to get back home. It was years of losing myself and self-betrayal.
Yeah.
And then there was a deep moment of having to get back, but get back with all the stuff that I learned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because those lessons are meant to be left behind. Because if not, you get back on the same train, just in a different destination. Okay. So you come back home. Then what happened?
Um, Started having kiddos, which I have 4,
Mm-hmm.
3 boys and a girl. And like I mentioned before, started having them 3 years apart, but it was always some level of infidelity in between.
Okay.
So it's like, you're having a kid and you may have some happy moments. But even when I say happy moments, I was never truly happy.
Mm.
Once infidelity started, eventually I would forgive and smile and do all that, but not truly ever comfortable on
Yeah.
the inside. Once that trust is gone, you can continue to fake it for your lifestyle that you want or image. Or, oh, I got married, I'm staying married, but day in and day out, you know, you're not sleeping necessarily with peace. You're not really comfortable. You're not really stretched out. You're not comfortable in life. You're just doing what you need to do. So I did that for years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For years.
Yeah. So going through
Um,
emotions.
yeah. And so it was a lot of stuff. And it wasn't just like, some people can listen to, the first story I said of the 10 women having sex with 10 women within the first year. And I'm pretty sure to be some people be like, that is enough for me. I'm out of there.
Mhm.
It was more things that happened that were extreme.
Okay.
And so I dealt with a lot. I dealt with, being confronted by women stating that he's talking to them or
So we
they've
went
had
from
sex.
chat line to in person. These conversations, were they phone or were people pulling up on you?
Oh, I've never had somebody pull up on me.
Okay. I wanted to make sure I understood. But these phone calls.
I'll give an example. After
Okay.
I had my third, and this will go smooth good into what I think should be talked about next is trying to change things about yourself for your partner. So
Mm.
that brings up, I went through a season, and I know that there's plenty of people that have experienced this, where I knew that he was not going to be faithful.
Okay.
So a way to control it was to offer threesomes.
Ooh, I can see how you're like, well, he's gonna do it anyway. And I
Mm-hmm.
can have some control and knowing who it is, maybe even a sense of safety because, a lot of people doing stuff with that stuff. I know that wasn't really the most eloquent way to say it, but like there's a lot of things that are out there. So being aware.
Yeah, it's a lot. And like I said, I really can't say it enough. When it's not your truth, it is truly self-betrayal.
Expand on that a little more.
When you are going against the voice within,
Okay.
that comes with a cost.
Yeah.
It affects your mental health, your physical health.
Mhm.
It changes your brain neurologically.
Mhm.
And you can think you're doing something that's making my relationship and that's like dying for something because slowly you're dying.
Oh.
That's saying that this is more important than my life.
Yeah.
That's out of balance. I
Very.
was out of balance for years
Mm-hmm.
trying to make my relationship work.
Mm-hmm.
It was always from beginning to end, it was always about sex. I remember one time and actually I'm gonna go back to that story, but prior to that, when we were into it about some affair, and I asked, why did you even, he's the one that came to me in high school. And he confessed it later. He was like, because I wanted to have sex. I wanted to have sex with you.
And that makes sense for like a
Yeah.
17, 18-year-old boy.
I want to have sex with you. But then I ended up liking you. Then I ended up loving you. Well, why did you get married? What made you want to marry me?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because I come from a Christian family and I wanted to be able to have sex with you without them on me and without guilt.
Mm-hmm. That happens
So
to a
you,
lot of people. They get into these very serious situations because the adult
yeah.
pushing them
Mm-hmm.
to live in alignment with what the good book says, but then also the kids, because that's what y'all were still, right? Was not
Absolutely.
ready. The spiritual maturation, the emotional maturation, it wasn't there.
Not at all.
Okay.
So then it's, being young, getting together with somebody for sex, marrying somebody for sex. Then it's just nothing but issues with sex.
Have
It's
you
it's
had a
the foundation.
deeper? I
You
don't.
said what?
I said, now, I don't even remember his name. I just remember his face when we were like young and he wore glasses. That's all I can like I could kind of see his face in my mind. But I didn't know anything about him other than he was your boyfriend when we were in high school. Like that's literally
Hmm.
the only reason why he even popped up on my radar. Okay, he was Sharon. But I don't know anything like about him. So I'm saying that to preface my next statement. But if all these things are about sex, 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 and the lengths he's willing to go to or through for sex, in my mind, clinically, they're telling me he's had a sexual trauma in some sort of way or been exposed to something, something's happened to him, so on and so on.
Yeah. I don't know specifically about any sexual trauma. I just know that like most young boys, he went through a time of being addicted to pornography.
Well, there you go.
But with family or anything like that, I don't know
Yeah, that's enough.
of anything.
Watching those images, it changes how what a kid may know is normal because nothing
Yeah.
about pornography necessarily, depending on what you watching, right, is meant for like intimacy, and nor can it capture what it means to create a connection, like
Mhm.
and building like true friendship and connection versus seeing women and men as a means to an end just for pleasure, transactional, disposable.
Absolutely. It has a great effect. It can go for many, many years. Change how you view relationships. Like, don't even know how to properly treat someone because of these visuals that you've had
Mhm.
from a very young age. So all of that could have definitely played a part.
Mhm.
But so, like I said, it was just many situations. There was a situation that came up of him being unfaithful with me from someone back home, and that person was married too.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things that came up with my therapist when I shared with her these different things, because he wanted me to befriend this person many years later, but I didn't know that they had had an affair. But
So
that's one thing that has come up. So my therapist used the word sexual deviant.
yeah.
When they want you, it's happened numerous times where he wanted me to be around someone that he has slept with or is dealing with without me knowing. That has shown up numerous times. And I never heard the word, I thought, sexual deviant, that there's something behind that.
Mhm.
So that goes into what I was originally saying when it got into the whole threesome thing. There was a woman that he wanted to have a threesome with, and me trying to please. I
Mhm.
reached out to her, I called her, and she said, She was like, "I don't think you know everything, or I'm surprised that you're calling me."
Okay.
She was like, "I just left from there not too long ago. We are already having sex."
Oh, okay.
But he could have chosen anyone. But that's that deviant. I need, some people will be like, "Well, I cheated with this person, so stay far away from them because I don't want you to find out." He would want to put me right in the battlefield, right there in the center.
He liked this.
Yeah, it's happened numerous times.
That probably really gave him a sense of power.
Yeah. Yep, that's the way it was expressed to me with sexual deviant. We were at his cousin's wedding once, and I'm just dancing and looking cute and having a good time, and I just kept seeing him by this woman, just constantly. And I looked on his Facebook the next day, and he was writing her, "I really want to get to know you. I'm very unhappy." And during that time, we were doing okay, doing pretty good. And so I asked him about it, and he was just like, "So you shouldn't have went through my phone." He was like, "That's not my problem. You found out because you looked through my phone." And so I reached out to her, and she ended up telling me, she said, "We talked that whole time." And she was like, "I'm going to be honest with you. I watched you that
There it
night."
is.
She said, "I watched you that night, and that changed me." And she said, "I want to apologize for connecting with him over that weekend." She said, "But there's one thing I want to say. If you decide to stay," she said, "be
Ooh,
very careful because your
ooh.
man has no conscience." It's always sat with me.
That's
She
another one of
said,
those moments where God
and
was
it was a
like,
pause.
listen.
It was a pause. It was a pause in, like, as if God said, "Pause. This woman that she's apologizing to you because she's letting you know this is what I was up to." But whatever was said or whatever happened that weekend when I wasn't around, she said, "You have a man with no conscience and you should be very careful." And as life went on, I have
Mhm.
never forgotten that moment because it got way worse.
Yeah, Sharon. I'm like, that man is beyond bold for multiple reasons. How far into the relationship are y'all at this point?
We divorced, it was 8 at that point, didn't have my second one yet. So this was early on,
Like
probably 6 or 7, maybe 6,
years? Okay. So,
possibly around that.
okay. And girl, you call that early. My whole relationship with marriage, that whole totality was like 6.5 years, and it felt like forever. But when you put that in the context of 18, yes. Um, so by this point though, Sharon, with you accepting him when you found out about the love, the what is the chat line hookups, and that there were 10, with how this personality is shaping of this person based on the behaviors, the patterns of behaviors is what I'll say. This is a person who's like, well, she accepted me through that, and then through this, through that, like it's almost like it kept feeding it. And you being so willing to fix and hold on to, right? Because marriage can become an idol to a lot of us, and it does to a lot of people. And you had
Yes.
the coveted thing. Why would you give it up and go back to these racing streets? Who's out there? Right? Sometimes is what people think. Well, he does this. And I imagine, depending on who you talk to, if you talk to anyone at all, people were talking you into the marriage and encouraging you to stay in the marriage in spite of what you knew, right? But it seems that he was only going to keep escalating each and every
Yes.
time. And for him to be that bold to do this in your face at a
Yes.
wedding, that's next level.
Oh, that's
That young
nothing.
lady, glad God changed her. And she had that
Yes.
moment.
I'm glad as well. Yeah. Because she didn't have to confess that and say, "This isn't the first married man I've messed around with or talked to." And just observing you,
Hmm.
I just don't want to do that.
What did she say? What she saw when she was observing you?
She just said, "You were just such a beautiful woman." And it just didn't make sense to me why he was hooking up with me. I just didn't get it. It just didn't
Wasn't
make
about
sense.
sharing.
Yeah. And so all of this, so before I continue, because you're like, that sounds like a lot, you'll understand why it got to the point of I finally filed for divorce. But through this process, it wasn't just people encouraging, there's family and people there that's like, is something wrong with you?
Okay.
What, what, there is not everybody encouraging to stay.
Okay.
You know, my mom she passed away in 2017, but prior to that, she watched me go through all of these ups and downs. Siblings watch this and they're all like, "Do you need help leaving?" Like, what's the problem?
Yeah.
Is something psychologically wrong? Because this ain't that serious. You do have people in your circle like that that's over it. They don't care about after you're hurt. Yeah, after you're hurt so many times, they're just like, is there something else going on? So I had that support also. And it was actually my mom that I remember her stating it to me years. It was actually the situation where I'd reached out to the woman regarding the threesome, and she said, I've been dealing with him. After I reconciled after that situation, that's when my mom was like, "Are you okay?" Like psychologically.
Yeah.
Like she asked me seriously, what's the limit? When is there a limit?
Yeah. Yeah, Mom.
And she told me, no woman is ready to go until she's ready to go.
That's true.
And
Same with me.
she said, there's nothing else for me to say because when you've had enough, that'll be when you have had enough.
Yep.
And no one can define that.
And Sharon, what was your father's interpretation of all of this or his response to it?
Well, he passed in 2020, but growing up, he was not in my life much. I saw him every couple of years, but he was very abusive. So I'm from Mississippi, even though a lot of people can't tell that. I used to have that country accent when I was little, but it went
I
away
think
over the
from
years.
Mississippi too, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so that Mississippi girl, she's still in here though. But that's where I was from. My dad was a pastor, and I didn't find out. There's few memories that I have in Mississippi. I left there when I was 9. I think a lot blocked out, but he was very physically abusive to family and sexually abusive to older siblings. And my mom left before that hit me. So I didn't grow up with any of that type of abuse. I can remember seeing some of the physical,
That
but I never experienced,
depression.
thankfully. I think I've dealt with trauma,
Yeah.
but I'm very grateful that my mom got us out that situation. I didn't grow up with any type of sexual abuse or anything like that. My heart goes out to people that have, because that's some heavy healing right there.
Absolutely. And so
Yeah.
even Sharon, growing up in that environment of abuse, it contributes to the blueprint. It
Yes.
normalized something early. I don't know
Yes.
what the abuse looked like, whether it was like verbal, what you were hearing, what you were seeing in the interactions. All of
Mm-hmm.
these things, we don't recognize it. It's part of it.
Yes. We had to dig deep
Yeah.
in trauma therapy.
Yep.
We'll get to that, but I did, almost 2 years of trauma therapy
Yeah.
when I finally filed for divorce. But yes, going into my childhood, specifically the day that my mom left my dad, and I didn't know what all was going on, but it was like chaos in the house. It was chaotic because everybody's packing, leaving real quick, while he's at work. And I knew we were running away from something, and how significant that day was for me. Because I'm little and I'm just watching everybody running around, in a panic. And I remember getting in the car. Nobody's explaining anything to me because I'm little. They just like, come on, come on. And I remember sitting in the back seat and I had this doll. It was a really big doll, and her name was Annette.
Mhm.
and she had on a blue and white dress. And I left Annette. And I remember sitting there and looking out the back window like this.
Mhm.
And I knew better than to ask my mom to go back and get that doll.
Mhm.
And I have remembered that for a year.
Yeah.
But in therapy, we had to really dissect that, what that chaotic moment did to me and how it shows up in my life.
Mhm.
How everything has to have a place for me. Everything cannot, it's shown up in my life and how I operate.
Mhm.
And if I'm not balanced, you will know it if my space appears to be chaotic.
Yeah.
That on the inside, I'm chaotic.
Yeah, that's a common marker that I can tell when some of my clients are having a hard time. It shows up in their space. And some of them, they recognize it on their own. They're like, my space is a mess because I'm a mess.
That is a very true statement.
Mhm.
That is a very true statement. And when you get clear, your space can be clear, then you just feeling good. Energetically.
Mhm.
Energetically, it affects you, it affects your space. So but definitely childhood.
Yeah.
Childhood became a big part of it. But I did not, see my dad a lot throughout my years growing up.
Mhm.
I have had to look and see, like, how has that affected me?
Yeah.
I always kind of would just be like, no big deal. I kind of felt like, I
Mm.
grew up in a very loving household, single mom, but my mom was amazing. I would choose her over and over and over. I grew up with a very kind, loving, soft-spoken mother, very
Mhm.
feminine, and so I picked up a lot of her characteristics.
And
But
so,
one of the things,
go
you
ahead.
said what?
You
One of the things that stood out to me was as I got older, would I have taken a lot of the things that I did had I had some experience of healthy masculine energy,
mm,
if that father space
was saying.
and example had been there in a healthy manner,
Mhm.
how different would that change? Because I think that's necessary. I
Absolutely.
think it's very important. And so I grew up being like just a very soft, very feminine. That was my answer. Being not just a good person, but feeling like you always have to be nice, even if it hurts you.
That self-sacrificial type of thing. It's the blueprint for self-betrayal. Nice over everything.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. That has changed
So I think we were a story within the story within the story, right?
within a story.
And
But
another
we're gonna
3
get
layers. Yeah.
yeah. And so basically, because there were so many moments of infidelity,
Mhm.
I would not be able to hit on it. So I'm just gonna get to what really
Go right ahead.
made things change in my life. So it was the infidelities, but it was constant arguing regarding flirting.
Mm.
We didn't have the same values.
Mm.
So he was
Mm.
always like, flirting is healthy for relationships. You need, because while I was married, I didn't
Mm.
have male friends. I
And
didn't really talk.
was that something that was talked about, or was that something that he, like, nipped in the bud immediately? Or was it just your values that's like, "No, that's not okay?"
We just didn't agree, and he did what he wanted. He told me that's not my problem. That you are uncomfortable. Like, I have female friends. If I have, I can talk to a woman about sex and not have sex with her, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I felt like I would always just be like stuck. Like I felt like I was in a movie.
But also, what would you say? And then also, Sharon, we got many layers of your programming here that lend itself to this, where even
Hmm.
though the people who knew you most and or best are like, well, what's the problem? They're not even connecting the dots from the imprints of the one birth to 9 years old. That moment when you're riding away in the car, knowing that you're never gonna see Annette again, right? Like, and the chaos that ensued. You just didn't know your life abruptly ending
Abrupt.
your physical connection for that moment because was severed from your father, right?
Hmm.
Not sure what the relationship looked like after. but then also having this mother who's so beautiful and just so soft. But even in our softness, we need a little.
You better believe it.
And so with all of that, that made you, for lack of a better way to put it, the perfect candidate for pretty prey for a predator to come in and just take over your world because you have been primed to allow the man to come in, to be
Hmm.
chosen, to be nice, to be sweet, to please.
Yeah. To please above all. That is not the truth. That is not what is most important.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah. So yeah, those things continued, and there just wasn't, you mentioned bold, very bold, always have been. So I can be like, I don't want you flirting with other people. It wasn't like, no, I'm sorry, I'll work less. Like, I like to communicate. I think you should flirt more.
That's the first I ever heard a man encouraging it.
Well, okay. So we'll get there. We're on our way. We almost there.
Okay.
So when it gets to eventually, a lot of people started talking about poly and things of that nature. A lot of that started coming up in the Black community and families and on social media and started being a really big conversation. So he found his tribe, as you could say. And so one of the big parts was that change because we were going to church, and then he decided that, his beliefs changed. And so he left church and he started getting more into poly and telling me or talking about it, bringing it up, how, this was the natural way of doing things.
Before you go too far. So when
Hmm.
you say his beliefs changed, you mean from Christianity? Christianity, he no longer believed in God? Like, what do you mean when you say it changed?
He believed in God, at the organized religion,
Okay.
as you would say, of Christianity and the rules.
Mm-hmm.
This was never God, this is man-made. That was his thoughts on it at the time. And so from there, it grew to pretty much like whatever goes, type of thing.
Wow.
And so, yeah, he ended up finding that community. So when you hear other people, y'all educating each other about, the freedom, we got the kids, we can have another woman in here doing this, doing that. I wouldn't be stepping out and this and that. And I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, just like that, speechless, just
Mhm.
stuck, just stuck. And so it came up around the time when my mother started getting really sick.
Mhm.
She had been ill, and hers comes from trauma.
Mhm.
Also, we ended up finding out that later.
I'm
Um,
so sorry.
but yeah, so that was 2017. I'm pregnant with my last child, with my baby girl, and I just remember telling him over and over during the pregnancy, please do not ruin this for me. Like, this is my last time having a baby. Just let me be happy. Like, let me have a happy pregnancy.
But what would be any different? You asking him to go against what he had been doing for decades now, or at least over a decade.
Yeah, just asking. And my mom's
Yeah.
ill. So, but then
Yeah.
this was the time I had an event in Houston. I ended up finding out that was a woman in the audience that he was talking to. And this is who he had in his mind for, that he would like to bring her in as a second wife.
Were
Mhm.
y'all living in Houston? Were y'all living in Texas?
No, I had an event in Houston, and
So he
she lived in
flew.
Houston.
Hold
So
on.
she came to my event.
This is so layers. I got it. So many layers because he knew. 'Cause getting back to the sexual deviant and the strategy. He knew you were going to Houston. He sought out people in Houston. So did he seek her out after your event or before your event?
Ooh.
I'm saying that to say if he did this premeditated, that meant he intentionally looked up people. I'm coming. Come to this event where my wife is going to be. Come. I want to see you here. Even if he doesn't say whatever. I don't know what he's telling these other women either, right? But it sounds like he led and would tell people I'm married. And so that would also be a way for him to filter out who's with it and who's not. Because if I tell you I got a wife and you still entertain me, I got you. Your value system is so low. I can just
Mhm.
whatever then.
Yeah,
Because what's sacred?
exactly. So I'm not at this point, when I look back, I was not mentally okay because everybody has like their person.
Yeah.
This is like, I mean, they just, and it could be different people, grandma, whatever. Mine was my mom.
Yeah.
That was my person.
Yeah.
And I knew that she was dying,
That's
but
so
I also
right.
had this baby growing in me. And so I went into depression
Mhm.
and I didn't have a big fight for him regarding this poly thing.
Mhm.
Eventually I was just like, whatever,
I'm
just
being
do it. And he's like,
confused.
well, she has another, his thing was, he was like, well, she has her doctorate. She has an income. Her and her kids can move in with us. Me and her can work. You can run your, he had this whole plan and she can help us pay these bills and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just sitting there stuck. I'm big. I can't even function. When I look back,
Mhm.
in the time, I felt like I was there, in the
Mhm.
moment I'm listening.
Mhm.
But when I look back, I wasn't even fully like functioning. I was just like,
You were already grieving. You were in a depressive state. You were pregnant. So that's going to take away your energy anyway. Like it seems like your fight every day was to just get up and continue to grow this healthy baby inside of you that I don't even have time. So do what you want to do, sir.
yep,
Mother's
yep,
dying. I'm just trying to stay alive, bring our daughter into this world. But I also hear that the way he was saying this about her, is that he doesn't understand his role as a man to cover. You gonna get her because of the resources she can bring in. You can't afford her, bro.
yeah, it was all, that's what poly was to him.
Convenience. What women
Yeah.
okay. This might sound personal, but I want to try to say this where it's not personal. It sounds like based on the behavior, he has no problem using women. No problem at all.
Absolutely not. And so, yeah, it's like what you said. I just kind of, I don't know what to do. So at that point, and then there were so many things that I had talked to my mom about throughout the years. I was suffering so much on the inside because
Mhm.
this is just one thing I could not tell her. As a daughter, I was so embarrassed
Mm,
that I was allowing this to go on.
yeah.
And so I remember when I just said, forget it, you know, this is what he's going to do anyways. He's telling me because I'm pregnant. So at the time, I'm not working.
Mm-hmm.
We need this income. And, if you try to stop me from being with her, you being selfish as a woman, or you need to go get a job. And I'm like,
What?
I'm due in like 3 weeks. um, I'm not against getting a job, but it's like I'm about to have a baby. My mom, it could be any other day, but he's like, and I believe mama is like about to die. And I'm big and pregnant, no income right now because I'm about to have a baby. And he's in here like, well, she has a doctorate. She can come in here and help pay these bills. I'll just have sex with you and her. And I'm like,
Nice.
she had 2 kids. And I'm like, so you want her 2 kids to move in here with our 4? You want me to stay at home? I'm just like saying all this out loud, just
Mhm.
processing. And I went into this quiet, depressive state. And so I remember one time he had her over, and I'm just like, I had no fight anymore.
Mhm.
And I remember one night of, allowing and engaging in a threesome. And I will never forget this moment. I got up in the middle of it
Mhm.
and I walked out of the room and I walked in my kitchen and I put my head down on the counter and I just bent over. My belly, it was so big, and it just
She
hung.
saw you
I
pregnant.
just cried, and I processed. I mean, I won't forget that moment because I remember the level of sorrow. It was sorrow in me. And what I was thinking about was my mother and how disappointed she would be in me.
Mm.
And I felt sorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, somebody, I mean, I would think somebody get up there, hey, you good? They steady in there having sex. And so I ain't say nothing. I needed to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
And there was nothing to do. It was just sorrow. That's all I felt. All I felt was sorrow and embarrassment
Mm-hmm.
because it wasn't my truth. But I felt too mentally imbalanced to do anything.
Yeah.
And then I'm hearing, you're processing, okay, well, then if I do this, then where am I going to go right now? I have to have time to have the baby and heal. And then I have to have time to look for a job again. When all these things are simultaneously happening, and then I got to bury her, then I'm mentally out of control, but I'm silent.
That's just on the outside. It was a whole lot stirring,
Chaos.
brewing, spinning on the inside.
Chaos.
And the body keeps score.
And the body keeps the score. That is absolutely true. And so my mom passed September 9th of 2017. And I remember I was at an event. I saw her the day before I went to the hospital. I kept going back and forth. And so, like I said, I'm big and pregnant. And I remember the last time I talked to her, she said, Renee, all my family calls me Renee.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody actually calls me Sharon in my family. And so she said, Renee, you got to stop coming up here so much because you are like ready to pop. And I was like, well, Mom, I want to, come see you every day. And I said, okay, I came today. I won't come tomorrow. I'll come on Sunday. It was on a Friday. I said, I'll come on Sunday. So then I had an event the next day on Saturday. And I got to the event and I was like, oh my gosh, this is only like 2-3 minutes from the hospital. I had no idea where I was going was so close.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, I'm going to see her anyway, because I'm right up the street.
Yeah.
I get a call from my sister that was there at the hospital with her, and she was like, she is, she's not responding all of a sudden. When I tell you, because one of my fears was not being there if my mom passed.
Mm-hmm.
For years, she got diagnosed with the autoimmune disease, and she had issues with her heart and her lung, and all of that links to trauma.
Mm.
And so she was a very healthy woman, very healthy. I remember her working out 4 times a week, always ate real good and healthy, but the body keeps the score.
And your mom was a woman. I don't know how old she was when y'all left Mississippi, what she might have went through as a child, and then her own choices
Oh
were
yeah.
already positive.
She had a wonderful childhood, but my dad was very abusive. Like I said, sexually abusive. So your children being abused by their father, your partner, it's extremely traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the physical abuse. So as we said, you can do all these things you want to do, but the body keeps the score. She still ended up going through this illness. And I was at that event. I got off that phone. I didn't care about none of the stuff I was selling.
Mm.
I left all my products. I had some other family there. Y'all get my kids,
I gotta go
but
sit by my mama.
I can't miss this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And my big old self, I had on a yellow dress. I was running down a hill due any day. I ran down this big hill because it was the fastest way to get to my car. And I was flying. You hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I get to the hospital, I'm running, I get to the elevator, and I get up there, and the nurse said, she has 16% oxygen left. So you don't have long, but she can still hear you.
Yeah.
But we always said everything, appreciation, love, care. So there was nothing else to say, but I still just laid on her chest and just spoke how much I just loved her and cared for her
Yeah.
and how I'm going to miss her. And I just laid on her chest until it stopped.
Mm.
So I was able, which was only maybe like 4 breaths. So I'm glad I took that heel.
Made a huge difference.
And thank God I didn't roll down it with my big old self. But that moment, I don't even know how different I would have taken her passing if I would have just got a call saying, oh, it happened. So my thing was, even though it was so close, I still was able to catch the last couple of heartbeats.
But even Sharon, this is how God works. You were just there minding your business, and he said, "I'm gonna put you close enough," and then you even recognize I'm really close to the hospital. I'm gonna go
Yeah.
see my girl. I'm gonna go see my mama.
Yeah. I mean, when I say close, I'm talking 3 minutes. And when I was driving there, I'm like, the hospital's right there. That's all. I didn't know that my mom was going to be passing and I needed to be that
Exactly.
close.
That's how God works.
I needed to be that close. So she passes. We have the funeral 7 days later. I have my daughter the day after the funeral. And that was my prayer. I said, look, doctors, I need y'all to know that under no circumstance am I going to miss my mother's funeral.
Yep.
So let's figure this out, or I'm going to break some rules. I'm going to have to clean up, do whatever, put me in a wheelchair if you must,
Mm-hmm.
if I have my child before this funeral.
Mm-hmm.
Made it to the funeral the day after my water broke.
Mm-hmm.
So I made it and I had her. And I remember being in the hospital, getting ready to go in labor, and I see him on the phone and he's all excited, and he's excited that this woman is coming down to help the one that he wanted to make his second wife. So I'm here.
Actually, as a woman, I'm like, he's not excited about the birth of his child, but this woman's arrival.
His focus was that woman.
Okay.
Even though he knew my mom since he was 18 years old, and she's been such a sweet person, his focus was so much on this opportunity of poly. And that's another thing that I had to face with my therapist and talk about. It's like, I can't remember him at the funeral. I know he had to be there, but I have no memory.
That
With
also makes
trauma,
sense. Yeah.
and we're going to talk about that, you can lose a lot of memory. I have no memory of him being there, but I remember the moment of seeing the sheer joy
Mm-hmm.
on his face that this woman was on her way here and driving from Houston to be able to spend time,
From Houston?
which is like 4 hour drive.
Okay. Okay. So y'all were in what city?
I'm in the DFW area.
Okay.
So at the time, Fort Worth.
Okay.
So we're like 4 hours from there. And so I'm just too tired for anything.
You're grieving? You just gave birth.
I thought I knew what grief was. I had no idea. Grief is something else,
Mm-hmm.
especially mama.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were very, very close.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, and then it's such opposite things, because it's like I had 3 boys, and man, I've had to see my mother in a casket yesterday, which was a huge fear of mine. And then here I am with this brand new baby girl, and I finally had a daughter. And I remember my mom telling me just a few days before she died, she said, I really wish I could see your daughter, because I can't even imagine you with a girl.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe you having a girl. And I said, Mom, don't say that. But she knew that she wasn't going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And so having those opposite feelings was crazy
Yeah.
when I look back. And then him, trying to pull somebody in during this time is, and at this time, I'm not fussing or not. When you get to a place where you are just tired Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing I can do right now. And so I went, had the baby, um, and had a healthy baby girl and left the hospital. So she was at my home while I was in the hospital. And so he was there for her birth. But the next day, which was 24 hours, I spent in the hospital, just me and the baby. He hung out with her and her children the whole day.
That's
So when I called and I said, "Where are you?" They were somewhere in Dallas bowling.
You're in the hospital recovering from giving birth to y'all daughter, and he's out. He's out on a date with this woman and her.
Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Rise and Thrive. Please come back for parts 2 and 3 of Becoming Whole, Leaving Toxic Love, and Finding Self with Sharon Gladney.